Good evening, and welcome to Direct Impact Broadcasting, the station of growth and transformation. Affiliate of Creative Broadcasting presents Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, with your host, Tawana Wilson, as she welcomes her guest to the studio.
Welcome to Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson. I am your host, Tawana Wilson. A little bit about myself. I am your award-winning leadership maven, medical laboratory sciences by background, best-selling author, owner and chief leadership coach at Trendy Elite Coaching and Consulting Services, executive director with the John Maxwell team, Maxwell Disc Certified Consultant, Send Out Cards Referral Partner, and co-owner of Direct Impact Broadcasting radio station. Before we bring on my special guest, I do want to share a few announcements. The authors of the Girlfriend Code Sorority Edition are now on tour. Our first stop is in the DMV on July 27th at the Courtyard Marriott in Alexandria, Virginia. The event is free and registration can be done on Eventbrite. You do not have to be a member of a sorority to understand or relate to any of the stories in the book. They're for girlfriends everywhere. All of the leadership assessments are on sale and available for Trendy Elite Coaching and Consulting at www.trendyelitellc.com. So take advantage of those leadership assessments while they're on sale. And we are also booking show guests through the end of the year. So if you have an interest of being among the trailblazers that we've had thus far and being on this show, please go on and apply at bit.ly/LT guests. Also, thank you to my media mentors, Ms. Ashley Little and Ms. Kimberly McLemore of Talk Radio and TV Network, LLP. Today's special guest, Ms. Lisa Coker. Lisa Coker is the CEO of Infinite Management Solutions, LLC, a woman, veteran-owned, certified small business which primarily partners with middle market and large organizations in both private and public sectors in the Midwestern region. Coker is a proud United States Air Force veteran. She has earned a reputation as a trusted partner, dynamic team facilitator, outstanding problem solver, and accomplished professional. She helps C-suite executives develop their strategic plans and streamline operational processes. Coker is a certified Lean Six Sigma continuous process improvement black belt practitioner and often consulted for her innovative business improvement strategies and solutions resulting in reduced operational costs and improved mission effectiveness. In addition to a bachelor's degree in business administration, Coker also holds a master's degree in organizational change management. She has additionally completed professional executive programs at University of Tennessee, University of Dayton, and Air University. Coker's passion, professionalism, and poise continue to propel her forward as a recognized expert and leader in her field. In 2017, Coker had the distinct honor of leading a comprehensive strategic planning project for the Air Force Materiel Command's AFMC 4-star General Commander. The commander manages an $80 billion annual budget and employs over 27,000 people. Coker's outstanding team leadership skills enabled the general and her 120-member leadership team to establish a new vision statement and multiple strategic goals and objectives. In 2018, the Dayton Business Journal recognized Coker as one of the region's brightest young professionals and named her a 40 Under 40 award winner. Coker holds memberships to the National Association of Professional Women, Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship, Armed Forces Communication and Electronics Association, Women in Business Network, Women in Defense, and Rotary Club of Dayton. In her spare time, Lisa Coker enjoys running and traveling with her husband and 3 children. Good evening, Lisa. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Coach T. Thank you for having me. I look forward to spending the next hour with you and your listeners, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I am excited to have you here and excited to hear all about your journey. So let's just jump right in. So, Lisa, can you tell the listeners about your leadership journey and how did you get to where you are today?
So absolutely. So as you heard, I am an Air Force vet, and Coach T, you already know that. One thing to point out, I'm going to figure out how to shorten my bio just a little bit. But anyway, that's on a serious note. You know, I'm an Air Force veteran. Served my country for 20 years, did 12 years active duty, finished out my last 8 years as a civil servant. And so a lot of my business acumen was developed during that 20-year span while I served in the Air Force. Like you mentioned, I earned both degrees while I was on active duty. Thanks to the United States Air Force, it was all tuition free, right? It was 100% paid by the United States Air Force. So I'm forever grateful for the opportunities that it's provided. And then, so I would say with all of that time spent in the United States Air Force and preparing, I would say it's just basically preparation has met opportunity. And so that's where Infinite Management Solutions has come about. So early on, just kind of backtrack a little bit, early on I served in the Air Force as a human resources professional. And so a lot of those duties, if you have listeners that deal with human resources, you kind of get exposed to a lot of different things and a lot of different people from diverse backgrounds and ranks and things of that sort. So I would say that was the first opportunity to really expand or, you know, kind of spread my wings. So did that for 12 years, and then I got a little knock on the door or a tap on the shoulder, and my husband, who's also a veteran, kind of came to me and said, "Hey, Lisa, Dayton, Ohio is kind of a cool place. We can raise a family. Would you consider, you know, separating from the Air Force, meaning you take off your blue suit, your warrior suit, and would you consider going in as a civil servant?" And so after a long thoughts, right, sleepless nights, I came about and said, "Okay, husband, I think we're on to something." And so that's how I left the military, but having still was able, you know, being fortunate enough to stay on Wright Pat as a civil servant. And so Wright Pat is an Air Force base in Dayton, Ohio, for the listeners who aren't too familiar with Dayton, Ohio. And so did that as a civil servant, went on to do a lot of Lean Six Sigma and organizational management, and just kind of took those challenges and opportunities as they came. And so never really saying no to challenges, additional duty projects, leadership opportunities, even though it was outside of my job description, I still took those challenges and opportunities on. And so every time I grew and grew and grew, my toolbox got bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's what I would highly recommend to our listeners. Take on those opportunities as they come, those special projects.
Wow, that's good advice. That's very good. And for the listeners who don't know, Wright Pat is a very big deal. Even though I grew up in Dayton, sometimes you don't realize the gem that you have. But Wright Pat is actually the largest single-site employer in the state of Ohio. It's a pretty large military base, and it's really like its own city. And so Lisa kind of said it a little bit, but just to give you context, that's a pretty big deal. Wright Pat is known for a lot of things. So that's awesome that you all even had the opportunity to come to Dayton and be out at Wright Pat.
That is truly, it has truly been a blessing. You are so right, Coach T. Absolutely.
Lisa, leaders come from all walks of life and have all different skills and strengths, and I'm sure you saw that being in the military, being stationed at different bases. What skills and strengths do you possess that you think have been the most important on your leadership journey, whether it was in the military or the entrepreneur space?
Or just the entrepreneur space. So I would have to say that some of the main strengths that I know that I have, one is I'm an extremely excellent listener. So when we talk about like active listening and really listening like with all intent, and so I'm watching the person who's talking to me, I'm listening into the different pitch of the voice, the tone of the voice. So I would say I've been blessed with that because I've learned, even through the entrepreneurial journey, that not everyone has that. So I've come to call that a gift. It's just my ears just key in. If someone's talking, I'm listening, and I'm fully engaged in that conversation. So with that, being an excellent leader, I'm able to process what's going on, whether it's being said, and sometimes it's what's not being said in a conversation that you have to key in on. So I would say that skill set has proved to be invaluable. Like it has served me well. I also would say just overall communication, understanding that, you provide feedback, you provide communication, but what's the feedback? If you don't get the feedback, and this is even in my company, right? So this is funny. Because I listen really well and I appreciate communication, I also appreciate the feedback. So I need to know that you received what I sent you, right? Because in this day and age, people are extremely busy, right? We're extremely busy. We're going 100 miles per hour. So if I send something or if I call, just acknowledge, hey, got it, working it, right? Because we're on to the next thing. So that kind of feedback, I send something, you send something back, right? Just to kind of close the loop. So that communication has proved me well. Problem solving. So with that Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification, that is problem solving at the 10th degree, right? So it's looking at data, figuring out what the data says, getting to the root cause, fixing the root cause and not the symptoms. And I know you can appreciate that as a scientist. Right?
Absolutely.
Right? So with that certification, you're solving the true no kidding problem. We're not touching symptoms. We're not fixing symptoms. Let's get to the nitty gritty. What are we improving here? And let's measure it. Let's watch it to make sure that we actually fix what we thought was going to work, what we thought the issue was going to be. So those two things. The last thing I would say, and I think it's a result of me listening so intently, is I never forget a name, right? I'm like, I need to build an app or something because I know I can make millions and millions of dollars off of this. But I never forget a name. If I meet you once, I know where I met you. It could be in the restroom at the Schuster Center, which is a huge, auditorium hall, right? A huge theater in the city of Dayton. I would know that you had on a green, sparkly dress and your shoes had feathers on them, right? And when I meet people and I'm able to see them in a different space and I'm like, hi, Taiwana, we met. This, that, and other. You had on a red blazer and black shoes and you're a Delta. And, those types of things. People are like, whoa. Like, have you been stalking me, or are you really just, you really just know me that well, or I made that much of an impression on you? And that's because I'm fully engaged when I meet someone. Like I am stuck on that person. So whether it's anywhere, if it's a restroom, parking lot, anything like that. So that has served me really well because I never know who I meet. It could be the general of an organization. It could be a CEO of an organization that I would have never known. I just knew they had on a green dress and feather shoes, right? So that has served me well, and just building really great relationships and partnerships. So those 3 or 4 things have really served me well. They served me well throughout my military career, and they're serving me really, the business is really growing. We're really taking off, and I would say those same strengths and gifts have contributed to that.
Yeah, you definitely need to create an app if you remember every name. Now, I think my memory is okay, but sometimes I remember the face, but the name may escape me.
Yes, I remember. Yes, if we actually shake hands, right? We shake hands. Hi, I'm Taiwana. Hi, I'm Lisa. Yep, I'll meet you about 5 years later and say, hey, I remember you, and they're like, where, when? So, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's definitely a gift. I actually have an aunt like that. She can remember dates like no other. She remembers stuff from like 20 years ago and remember the date. So that's a gift right there.
Thank you. Yep, that's me. Birth date, I know all of them. Aunts, yes. That's me.
So that is a great point. So with you having a background in HR and then moving into the Six Sigma and the lean processes, how do you kind of merge the two? Because sometimes in HR you're dealing more with the people. With your lean processes, you're dealing more with the processes, more technical. How do you blend the two? And what I mean by that is more so language. Because sometimes I work with lean Six Sigma practitioners, and they're so far on the technical side. It's like, no, okay, now is that what I meant? What are you saying? So how do you blend that? Because you're a people person, and so just want you to share with the audience who may be sitting in lean Six Sigma sessions like me, and their person is far off in the technical space. How do you blend that?
Right. So I would say that because I do have that human resources background, and then my master's is in organizational and change management. So organizational is any group of people, right, that's coming together for one purpose or a goal, to achieve a goal, right? And so you do need the technical piece, but if you don't have the people skills to rally the troops per se, right, or inspire them to move, then all we have is data, and we have a problem still facing us, right? And so if I would say that's one of my strengths as well, just from a career standpoint, from where my business is right now, I would say that's why people come to IMS. IMS is the name of the business. We call it IMS because Infinite Management Solutions is a mouthful, right? And so people come to us because we have the technical skills, but we also have the people skills. And so we know how to talk to people. We know how to inspire people. We understand the struggles and the challenges of change. We know that. We're human, right? And we don't act like that change is easy. But we do know that we can get through it, right? And so with the right tools and techniques, we get them through it. So that's kind of our niche. I mean, we're really gifted, and we just have that as a company. So as the owner, I have it, and even as my team, we're growing a team. We have a team of 8 people, about to grow to 10 within the next 2 months. And so another thing that I like, a tool that I've learned to appreciate, is the Strengths Finders book and the assessment. And so a lot of my team members have the relatable strength, which means I can go into a group and into any organization per se, right, and relate to that team of people. So whether it's scientists, physicians, automotive industry, right? So not only is Lean Six Sigma agnostic, but so are we, because we're people and we can relate to the different types of people. And so it's really it's a blessing, honestly. Coach T, I try to explain it. Again, it's preparation, met opportunity, and boom, right? Here we are. That's exactly it.
Wow. Awesome.
Did that answer your question from a technical piece? Because
it did, because it helps. Like I said, being in meetings and, having work with some Lean Six Sigma practitioners before, they're so far on the technical piece that it's like, well, on the data, it's like, how is this relatable? What exactly are you wanting me to do?
Correct. And what am I going to be faced with when I take this back to my team that we're about to do this? Right?
Right.
Absolutely. Right. So we bring both elements, both components to it. So we have the people skills, but we also have the technical skills, and we're able to pull out whichever tool we need to, depending on what group of people we're working with and what problem we're trying to solve.
Got it.
Absolutely.
I know in your business, Infinite Management Solutions, IMS, you help mid and large companies develop their strategic plans and streamline their operational processes, and you are growing, which is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about it? And you talked a little bit about it already, about why this kind of work is important, and why is it important to leadership?
Absolutely. And so I literally just had a meeting with a team of women in manufacturing. And so I'm extremely passionate about strategic planning because I've seen that it works. right? I've been a witness. Not only have I helped facilitate strategic plans, but I've helped execute the strategic plan, and I've even developed one in my own company, so Infinite Management Solutions. So when I tell you, one of the young ladies in the briefing today said, so you have really drank the Kool-Aid. Absolutely. I've drank the Kool-Aid. It's sweet. It's really good. It's chilled. Like, I can tell you, it really works, right? So the strategic planning is basically a roadmap to success. Day to day as leaders, we are extremely busy. And so especially as a CEO or senior leader in your organization, you're running a team of people. You're doing good to just firefight, to just get day-to-day operations done, right? So strategic planning gets you that time. It's time away from the firefighting. It's time away from the day-to-day ops. And it gives you time, you and your leadership team, to just take a break and come together and say, where do we want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? And it's really taking a break. It's like turning cell phones off. We're going to just take this downtime, do a quick, an offsite. It could be 4 hours, 8 hours, 2 days, depending on what's required, right? And we're going to devote our time, all of our time, our thoughts, our energies into what do we want to look like, right? And you put it down on paper. And then you start pen to paper. Pen to paper is critical, right? That's throughout the entire session, if I don't repeat it anymore. Write the vision, make it plain, right? So you write it down, and you're saying, you and your leadership team are coming together and saying, this is what we're going to look like in the next 3 years. It goes from this is what we want to look like to this is what we're going to look like in 3 years, right? And so it's a roadmap to success. If you take the time up front and develop it, it'll save you so much heartache and time on the back end. So the roadmap to success is critical. Strategic plans. So strategic plans also allow you to figure out how will you align your team, right? If I know where I'm headed, then I'm going to tell the rest of the team we're headed north. If I never, as the leader, say we're headed north, I'm going to have some of my team going west, some are going to go east, some are going to go south. Maybe a couple of us will go north, but just imagine if all of us were aligned and headed in the same direction. How much faster could we get to where we're going if everybody's mind is on the same direction? We're headed here. Let's take it. Let's take that hill. So that kind of, if you think about the strategic plan and you want to put a lot of action behind your strategic plan. I know when I talk to leaders, they say, oh, are we just going to put this on the shelf, right? Are we just going to put the strategic plan in a binder and never look at it again? Sure, I'll do this exercise drill. When you put massive action to anything, you'll see results. So just imagine putting massive action to a strategic vision or a strategic goal. You'll see it happen. And a lot of times, in my experience, you'll see it happen sooner than what you put down on paper. Wow. So that's my Kool-Aid. Drink the Kool-Aid of strategic planning. But seriously, it works. Honestly, I'm proof. My company is proof that it works for an entrepreneur who stepped out on faith, who's using a lot of the same tools and techniques. My business is growing, and we've exceeded our strategic goals. Right, and so it's time to make new goals. We literally just did this 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
To refresh it because we've exceeded our goals. Absolutely.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you.
So
yeah.
That's awesome, and that's a blessing.
It is. It really is.
Did you find it hard to make that transition from being in the military where things were a little bit more structured to going into the entrepreneurial space where you still have structure, but as we know as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of flexibility. And so the mindset, even going from corporate to entrepreneurship is a mindset shift.
Absolutely.
How were you able to make that change or that shift into the entrepreneurial space?
That's an excellent question. So it took a little bit of adjustment. Excuse me, because I would say the biggest adjustment for me was the structure of having to come into work at a certain time and pulling your 8 hours. That would have been, to me, the hardest adjustment what helped me is because I do understand, I think structurally and I think organizationally, right? I think like that, and so I was able to come in and kind of build some of that in a small startup company where I could, right? And then where I couldn't, it was just ad hoc, and I was okay with ad hoc. It was just a part of the growing pains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the change, and it probably helps, Coach T, that I have a change management degree, so I know that change is inevitable, and so just how do you manage through the change? You know, until, okay, here's my current state. My future state is I want to have a successful business. So these are just the steps that I have to go through. They're probably not as pretty or as efficient as they need to be, right?
Right.
But knowing where you want to end up, having that roadmap allows you to fall, get back up, right? Pivot a little bit, say, oh, that doesn't work. Let me shift it a little bit. But knowing that eventually I'm going to get to where I'm headed, where I put on paper I'm going to be. So, I would say being flexible enough to pivot when you need to. A plan is just that, a plan. You can erase it and you can put something else on the paper, right? You can adjust. I'm not going north because it's not there, it's south. Okay. Be flexible enough that you can pivot when you need to.
I like that.
That's kind of helped me.
Yeah, I like that. Being flexible enough to pivot when you need to. So that is a great leadership lesson. Lisa, it's important for our next generation of leaders to not only hear about our successes, but also to hear about some of our mistakes that we've made. So can you share with the listeners some of your mistakes and learning lessons that you gained from them?
Absolutely. So I'm a little more risk-adverse, which is very not entrepreneurial in nature, right? Most entrepreneurs are really risk takers, right? They're aggressive when it comes to, taking the heel. So I'm a little more risk-adverse, which probably explains why it took me 20 years to become an entrepreneur, just because I wanted to make sure, okay, am I confident? Is it going to be okay? Lots of prayer, right? But I would say one of the things, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistake, but if I had to do it a little different, I would say my exit strategy, leaving civil service, going into being a business owner, I would say I probably would have given it a little more time. And so I say that I started the business in 2015, but I kind of still worked my full-time job, right? I didn't necessarily take it seriously. I may have did a logo and put it back on the shelf, just kind of a pet project. And then there was a point where I was like, I'm getting to a point now where I'm excited about IMS, and I'm getting a little more excited about IMS than I am about, serving in this capacity within my full-time job. And so I said, now it was with deep prayer, so I wouldn't call it a mistake. That's why I said I wouldn't call it a mistake. But if I would have used some of the tools that I talk about now with a strategic plan, I would have given myself a little more time sitting in my full-time job before I left. So I resigned and left in 30 days. Nothing said, nobody said, no policy said you only have 30 days. I did that, right? But that was under deep prayer and things of that sort. But I could have easily said, okay, 6 months, give myself 6 months, right? I'm going to save a lot of more money over these next 6 months. I'm going to make sure the family is prepared for mommy to be at home, right? All of that.
Right.
So we took our whole family, went through this change together. They were like, hold on, wait. In 30 days, you're not going to have a job? Let's wait. You can imagine those people skills came in handy. They're like, hey, evidently you're not a really good listener in the household because you would have known that we don't need you to quit your job right now. So, but, stepped out on faith. So I would say if I could have done anything different, right, it would have been that. Versus having 30 days, I would have set out a plan. And even if I would have given myself 90 days, right, put in the letter of resignation, I'm going to leave in 90 days, or what have you. I would just say I would have given myself just a little more time to build up the structure of IMS while having income, right?
Right.
And those types of things. So if I had to do it any different, that's what I would change a little bit. I would think a little more strategic on my exit path. Mm-hmm. But it served me well, like, you know, but it probably didn't have to be as rough the first 12 to 15 months had I taken a little more time on the front end. Right.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. And, you know, I've seen it and heard it done, you know, both ways, plan and then jump, or just jump. You know, sometimes the situation, sometimes depending on the situation, you just got to jump. You know, and other times, you know, you have a little bit more time to plan.
Absolutely. And I think a little bit of that was, okay, I don't want doubt to creep in, you know, because after you sit for so long, you're like, well, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I can do both. So I was a little, I was leery about that, sitting there too long, that doubt would creep in and I would change my mind. But if you take the time and build a no-kidding strategy and a plan, right, unless something devastating happens where you have to stay on your full-time job, you know, something happens with the family. Other than that, you kind of stick to the plan. So that makes
perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. A lot of times, and it's interesting, you know, when people, you know, hear that others are in the entrepreneurial space. Usually for me, I always get that, like, you're so brave. And I think about it. I think about it. I'm like, well, you know, those that came before us, when I think about my great-grandparents and grandparents, well, everybody was in the entrepreneur space.
Right.
That's what they did. They weren't working corporate jobs.
Absolutely.
It seems like at some point we have gotten a little bit afraid of, you know, going outside of, you know, what's traditional. You know, then traditional was entrepreneurship, you know, or the next thing was military. Now it's like corporate. And so when you do those things that are outside of what is now the norm now is corporate. Now you're doing the entrepreneurship. It's like, wow, you really brave. And it's like, I don't know. History repeat itself, I guess.
And it does, right? Because now this is the entrepreneur space is where it's happening. I mean, you know, I just sat through maybe about a month ago. We had a guest speaker at one of our networking sessions, and his name is Dr. Pichard. He's out of Detroit, Michigan, and he's a multimillionaire. He has his hands in so many different businesses in the city of Detroit, right? But he came to speak to us, African-American man, and he just said he wanted to share some of his pearls of wisdom. And what he left us with, he said, back in my day, there was no such thing as running into someone who didn't have two jobs. So he said, we are in a two-arm economic society. And young men and women, you need to remember that. So it's okay if you work a traditional job that pays the bills, that keeps the lights on, that keeps the kids fed, right? But you have to enter into the American way. You have to figure out how capitalism works. You have to figure out how to run a side business. He said, even if it's Mary Kay, even if it's selling Avon, you have to understand how economics work and how America works. If not, if you only work a traditional 9 to 5, you'll never understand what's happening around you in the business world, right? How money moves, how you make profit, how you take losses, right? How you make, so it was excellent. I mean, and that has stuck with me. So, you know, there's no such thing. You're in a two-arm society. You have two arms. You need to keep a side, and he didn't call it a side hustle, but, you know, in the blogs and everything now, that's kind of what they call it. But, but you have to do something, right? So, absolutely. Make your money work for you. That's what he was basically, get in the game.
That's good. That's good. Get in the game. That's absolutely true. I mean, whether you call it a hustle, a side business, an investment opportunity, you have to have more than one stream of revenue. I mean, because you just don't, you never know. And I tell people all the time, growing up in Dayton, and I've, been on this planet for 38 years, and never in a million years would have thought we would have closed 2 major hospitals and a major manufacturing facility plant in one small city in my lifetime.
Right. The GM plant. And now, I didn't think about that.
And so, it used to be, things were for certain. Who would have thought they would have closed down the hospital? I mean, they closed St. E. They closed down Good Samaritan and General Motors. I mean, that was a huge, blow to the Dayton community at the time that those places closed. And who would have thought? Who would have thought that? Like, I'm in healthcare.
Right. That's true. 2 main hospitals.
Two main hospitals. So that, that just goes back to that notion of, of you needing, you are in a 2-armed society. If all you did was work at Good Samaritan and they've closed and you have nothing else coming in, then you're like stuck.
Absolutely. You're hitting the reset button versus let me pivot. Let me put a little more time into my Avon business, right? Or whatever that is.
Right.
That, or flipping properties or whatever that side job is.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That is absolutely valuable. You are absolutely right. That was great advice.
Thank you. Yeah. I love sharing what I learned, I love it.
So as we speak about advice, what advice would you give an emerging leader who may be looking for leadership opportunities and ways to fill their professional toolbox? So as I work with young people, and I know that you probably do or talk to people, and they're like, man, I'm not in the leadership, and sometimes they equate leadership to supervisory or managerial role. I can't get leadership skills. So how would you suggest that emerging leader think about leadership skills in a different way than just getting them, in their particular role?
Absolutely. So I would say look around for opportunities outside of even the job, right? So say, for instance, you're an entry-level worker. There's always side projects coming down the pike, right? You can always talk to your supervisor and say, hey, I'm looking for leadership. That's the first thing. Make it known. Make it known. If you ask, you'll never receive, right? If you never make it known, people don't know how to help you. So you have to open your mouth. That's the first thing. Make it known that, hey, as you get special projects, I'd love to take those on, right? And I'd love for you to trust me to take on even a small project. Right? Because what leader, think about you're a leader now, right? How would that make you feel to see an up and coming scientist, right, brand new to the organization to say, hey, you have any special projects that I can take off your plate? Let me show you. Oh, my goodness, right? You are like, the Lord answered my prayer. Like he heard me last night, right? So, honestly, so just imagine now that we're in those shoes, imagine how much value that person is going to add to you as the leader of the organization and the organization and their team as a whole, right? So there's no reason why you can't take on extra projects. What leader wouldn't give you a special project? Okay, that's the first thing. So look within your organization first. If the opportunity doesn't exist, you always have outside organizations. And so that could be something in your church, right? I want to take on a leadership position within my church. I want to take a leadership position with a professional organization. So another opportunity, any professional organization you join, a lot of them anyway, they're looking for people because it's the 80-20 rule, right? Almost with everything, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And so you come in as a new member of the professional organization, and you're saying, hey, guys, I'm ready to take on a leadership role. Here are my strengths. I'm really good at finances. I can help balance the books. They're like, you want to be the next treasurer? Right? They're like, right? So there's leadership opportunities all around us. It's just a matter of knowing what you want, having that roadmap, knowing where you're headed, and being able to communicate to the people who can help you to say, this is what I would like to do. I always talk, here's another coin phrase that I use. It's not mine. I haven't coined it, but I live by it. How can I add value, right? Us as a company, how can we add value? Figure out what the customer or the leader values, and you figure out how you add value to them, right? So if they value their time at home with their family, how can you help them take something off of their plate, right, so that they can spend more time at home with their family? And guess what? You're going to learn leadership skills automatically, just being up under that leader. And so seek out projects that are outside the scope of your job. You have to go above and beyond than your job description, right? That's the key, honestly. If I just did what my job description said, I would never be where I am right now. Never.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's what I would say. Seek out opportunities outside of just what the job calls for, and make it known. Make it known to whoever you can talk to. Hey, I'm looking for leadership opportunities. Hey, what can I take off your plate? Right? You got to be careful, though, because then your plate will get super full if you're not careful. But you'll be looking for the next person to pass on some of those special projects too. But absolutely.
So as we think about that, is in a time where we're asked to do more, serve more, give more, be the best, and the list goes on and on. One's core values can be compromised in the process of trying to elevate career and position in the workplace. So what advice, because this is something that come up, especially with women leaders all the time.
Oh, my goodness.
What advice would you give to our listeners who are struggling to balance career, maintain home life harmony, while maintaining a sense of self? Because sometimes you can do career and that's what you're doing, career, and then something else kind of suffers. Or, just how do you keep all the balls in the air, or what do you do? What are your strategies?
Okay. So the first thing would be, I have always believed in the old adage, it takes a village. And so when I tell you that I rely heavily, emphasis on heavily, Coach T, I rely heavily on my village, right? So I have a loving spouse who's also an entrepreneur. And so I tap into him every chance I get, right? Just from what did you do when you were in this space, right? What would you do if you were in this situation? So having that support has been extremely, extremely beneficial. My mom, so she comes in every other week and she helps with, some of the household, not chores, right, but just managing the household, because she understands as an entrepreneur, I am super busy. I work long hours now. Before in the Air Force, I worked 8 hours, 9 hours. I would punch out and I'd come home. Now it's like 15-hour days.
Right.
And so she comes in and she helps, right? She helps. She's the eyes and ears in the household when I'm not here, making sure the kids get picked up. So I have 3 beautiful children, right? And so knowing that it takes a village. I have family members, aunts, cousins. I mean, honestly, when I tell you I rely heavily, if I find out, remember I told you that strengths finders, once I know your strength and you're in my family, I leverage it. Oh, you like to cook? Sure. Come on over. So those types of things. So I rely heavily on my village. And then also I try to surround myself with good people, right? So I try to surround myself with good people. It's a prayer of mine, Lord, surround me with good people. Let good people come into my life. So things of that sort. And I'm not necessarily relying heavily on them in the household, but hey, Coach T, what are your thoughts about this? Right? I think I even tapped into you like not too long ago, maybe a month after you kind of gave me some tips, right? Wisdom tips, pearls of wisdom. And I think I circled back and said, hey, Coach T, okay, I got this opportunity. How would you approach this? Right? So once I know that you're a good person and I know your strengths, I'm like, okay, perfect. Because I want that same respect, right? I want the same. I offer the same type of time to my village. Hey, if you need me, I'm there. If you need to call and talk, get some advice, strategies, you need help figuring out a roadmap, you want to lean out some processes, whatever it is, let me think through your problem. I'm there. I make myself available. And so that would be very important. So relying on first of all, having a village, and then not being afraid to ask for help, right? Again, make it known. Once you know what you need, make it known. Nobody reads minds. Everybody's busy. If you ask not, right? You have not because you asked.
Right.
Absolutely. And so I'm always prayerful, and I'm always asking. Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense. What role, if any, has having a coach or mentor in your life done for you personally or professionally?
Oh, having a mentor is critical. It's crucial. So I've had a few mentors throughout my career, but having someone who you trust, right, to be vulnerable with, to say, hey, here's what I'm working through, here's what I'm thinking, what advice would you give me, and being able to trust that what they're giving you is for your good, right, that they have your best interest in mind. So having a mentor can also, it can't necessarily shorten the process, right, because I always talk about trust the process, right?
Right.
But it helps you trust the process that much more. That's what I think a mentor does, right? They can help you. They let you know that if you do A, B, C, D, E is going to be next, right? And they're telling you, I know this because I've experienced it, or I'm going to put you in contact with this person because they've experienced it. And so having mentors has been, I can't even explain how much mentors. So I do want to give a shout out to some of my mentors. So I told you I was in the military. So, and a lot of them are women. So the first one would be Colonel Colleen Ryan. One, because she was the first woman commander of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So remember we said it's a little city. She was the first female commander. So after her, I would say it was Colonel Amanda. Back then she was Gladney. She was the first African-American woman of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, right? So she was the first one. Yes, Colonel Colleen Ryan was the first woman, so I saw myself in her. Then I saw Colonel Amanda Gladney. I saw myself even more in her, right? And then Colonel Cassie Barlow came after Colonel Gladney. And so it was during this time where it was a recession going on. They were riffing people, in the civil service. There was a lot of change going on. And when I tell you these ladies managed that change, that turmoil, people were in angst. They didn't know if they were going to have to move jobs or move to another city, right? And they managed that with ease and great. Now, it wasn't easy, but they made it look easy, right? And so I was fortunate enough to work closely with them and watch their different leadership styles and see how they approach those situations. All different, right? Because they're all different leaders. They have all different strengths, but they rocked it. And I was young enough to say, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And those ladies are still a critical part of my network, right? All of them. And I just admire them. I appreciate them. And then we have, some of the gentlemen who I've worked with. So Chief retired Dan France. He's still at the Air Force Base, but he was the first leader that I heard say, keep it simple. So the KISS rule, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. He didn't say stupid, right? But he said, keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. So he balanced things out. But I've had some great mentors I cannot thank. And there's so many more, Coach T, honestly. Chief McDaniels. I mean, there's so many. I have some in the entrepreneur space now, right? Because now I'm an entrepreneur. And what it took to be a colonel in the Air Force is different as a CEO of a company, right, where people are eating off of you. If you make a wrong decision, you might have to let some people go. right? So
Right.
that's a whole different level of responsibility. And so I have leaders, CEOs that are my mentors in that space as well. And so I'm just thankful. I am grateful. I really am.
That's always a good thing where you can have some trailblazers on your path or good people on your path to really steer you in the right direction. So that's awesome. And hopefully they're listening. If not, I'll make sure you have the replay so that you can share with them the impact that they had on your life, because that's important too. We touch so many, but we don't always know, who we are touching. So that's awesome that you.
Absolutely, that we value it. So some of the ladies that I work with in the Women in Defense are like Ann Hurley, right? She runs LDSS, a defense contracting company, which we're a defense contractor now, right? That's the space we're in. So I rely heavily on Ann. I rely heavily on, call her T-Mac, but the name of her company is Macalogic. So, I mean, it's just really just having a village, right, and being a part of those professional organizations where you meet good people and they're willing to help you get to the next level. And then you do the same thing. You pay it forward. And so that's what I try to do. I try to pay it forward because people have invested their time, their talent, and their treasure, right, in me. And so I return the favor. So
absolutely. So, Lisa, how can our listeners stay connected with you and support you in your efforts? How can they keep in contact with you?
So, absolutely. So, we are on, of course, I'm on LinkedIn. So, it's Lisa Coker, and we're the owner of IMS. But also, one thing I want to shout out, we're on Facebook as well, Lisa Coker. Also, there is my company, Infinite Management Solutions. So, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. So, all of those social media sites. But one thing I want before we hang up, Coach T, is I want to give a shout out about the Alzheimer's walk. So for the walkers, for the people that are in Dayton, Ohio, I am honored to be the honorary chair of the Alzheimer's Walk. And so it's a walk to end Alzheimer's, raise funds for awareness and advocacy. And we're trying to prevent and just eliminate this disease. So we're looking for walkers, people to sign up. The walk is October 5th at 8:30 in the morning at the Dayton Dragons Field. I always call it the Dayton Dragons, the Fifth Third Field in downtown Dayton. But we're always looking for donations. We're looking for walkers, start a team. And so shout out to Coach T because she has been doing an awesome job with her team. And so we just definitely want people to just reach out. It's ALZ, if we want to give out the website, www.alz as in all/walk. And if you Google that or if you go to that .org, you can get to the walk in Dayton, Ohio, October 5th, Saturday, at the Fifth Third Field. And so I've been staying busy with that too, Coach T.
That's awesome. So as a recap, listeners, the Alzheimer's Walk in Dayton, Ohio, October the 5th at 8:30 at the Fifth Third Field. Some of you may call it the Dragon Stadium. I call it the Dragon Stadium, but we would love to see you come out that morning. Those of you who listen know that I'm very passionate about that cause, and that was one of our fundraising efforts for this year. So would definitely love to have you to come out and support Lisa being the co-chair of that event this year. So, Lisa, we could probably talk for another hour, but unfortunately our time tonight has come to a close. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, busy schedule to give me the opportunity to interview you. It was definitely an honor and a pleasure to catch up with you, and I felt like we were just two old friends catching up, dropping some leadership tips. So many blessings to you and continued success on your journey and your business as it continues to grow with the Alzheimer's Associations, with the walk this fall. So just much success and continued blessings your way. So I definitely appreciate you
so much, Coach T. Thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing your listeners with me for the last hour. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So thank you, listener audience, for tuning in to tonight's show with
my special guest, Lisa Coker, where she shared with us, you are in a two-armed society. Remember, having more than one way or more than one revenue stream. How can I add value? Remember to continue to ask yourself that question in different situations. How can I add value? And then what are your strengths? Thinking about active listening skills. Make sure you are actively listening and engaged. Key in on what is being said and also what is not being said, because that's critical. Never say no to opportunities and challenges. It's important to challenge yourself. Build great relationships and partnerships. Strategic planning is critical. If you do the strategic planning up front, it will definitely save you time on the back end. Write the vision, make it plain. Be flexible to pivot when you need to. So don't be so structured that you are not flexible to pivot. Remember, it takes a village. So surround yourself with good people and don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody's a mind reader, so they don't know unless you ask. So make it known that you need help or you're looking for an opportunity. If you like what you heard tonight and want to listen to previous shows, subscribe at www.podcast.coachtwilson.com. And please tune in next week to hear from another amazing leader. Until then, have a good evening.
Thank you, friends, for tuning in to another episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, where Taiwana speaks with leaders who share nuggets of wisdom that you can use in your personal and professional life. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Coach T. Wilson. Connect on LinkedIn or visit www.coachtwilson.com. And remember, in life, learn as much as you can, appreciate often, and lead fearlessly.